The room fell silent as the security guards approached the stage. My heart pounded against my ribs, but I forced myself to stand tall, wine glass still poised in my hand. The 64 influential buyers and critics who'd been nodding along to my presentation just moments before now shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "Ma'am, you need to come with us immediately," the taller guard announced, his voice echoing through the tasting hall. "There's been a serious accusation regarding competition violations." I looked past him to where August sat at the judge's table, his thin lips curved into the faintest smile. Our eyes locked across the room, his gleaming with satisfaction, mine burning with the humiliation of 5 generations. The purchasing director for Royal Crown Hotels, a man who controlled a $5 million account that could save everything my family had built, glanced down at his notes, then back at me, disappointment clouding his features. "I understand," I said, setting my glass down with a steady hand. "But before I go," I reached into my leather portfolio, pulled out a single yellowed document, and walked directly to the purchasing director. "This belongs to you, Mr. Davenport. I believe it clarifies everything." The confusion in his eyes shifted to curiosity as his fingers closed around the paper. "Before I continue this story, if you're enjoying it so far, please tap that like button and subscribe. It really helps the channel, and trust me, you'll want to hear how this all unfolds. The revenge I took against the man who tried to destroy my family legacy? Let's just say karma doesn't always need to be patient. My name is Sage Wilmot, 32 years old, with dirt under my nails and wine in my blood. 3 years ago, I abandoned a promising career as an environmental scientist to return home when my father's heart attack left our 5-generation vineyard vulnerable. Wilmot Vines wasn't just land, it was the beating heart of my family's history, the repository of every joy, sorrow, and triumph we'd experienced since my great-great-grandfather planted the first vines in 1891. I remember the day I drove up the winding gravel road, past rows of struggling grapevines that had once produced award-winning wines. The main house, a modest 2-story structure with weathered wood siding and green shutters, looked smaller than in my memories. Dad sat on the porch, his once robust frame diminished, watching me approach with weary eyes. "You shouldn't have come back, Sage," he said as I climbed the steps. "There's nothing left to save." He was wrong. There was everything to save. That evening, as golden light spilled across the kitchen table covered with financial documents, my father explained how climate changes had affected our harvests over the past decade. Traditional growing methods were failing, profits dwindling, the bank was calling in loans, and August Bellamy, owner of neighboring Cresthaven Vineyards, had made 3 offers to buy our land, each lower than the last. "He knows we're drowning," Dad said. "He's just waiting for us to go under completely before he swoops in." I studied the property maps spread before me. Why does he want our land so badly? His vineyard is 4 times our size. Dad's fingers traced the boundary line between our properties. Our northeastern slope. He's always coveted it. That night, I walked the perimeter of our vineyard under a canopy of stars. The soil beneath my feet felt alive. Generations of my family had tended this earth, understood its moods and whispers. Near the far corner of the property, I discovered an overgrown section where ancient vines grew wild and untamed. Kneeling, I brushed away years of neglect from one gnarled trunk. These were the heirloom varieties my grandfather had mentioned in his journals, plants that had been abandoned when my father modernized production in the 1990s. I broke off a small, imperfect cluster of grapes and tasted one. The complexity of flavor burst across my tongue, earthy, mineral-rich, with an acidity that made my mouth water. This was our salvation, not in mimicking the industrial methods of larger producers, but in returning to what made Wilmot wines special in the first place. Over the next 2 years, I poured every ounce of my scientific knowledge and family heritage into revitalizing those forgotten vines. We pruned, nurtured, and harvested by hand. Our production decreased, but quality soared. The first small batch of what we called Heritage Reserve sold out within days of release to local restaurants. Wine critics began to take notice. A respected industry blog wrote, "Wilmot's limited production Heritage Reserve represents a stunning revival of old-world techniques combined with modern understanding of terroir. The distinctive mineral notes can only come from exceptional soil conditions." That's when the trouble began. The day after that review published, August Bellamy appeared at our winery door. I'd only seen him from a distance before, a tall, silver-haired man in his 60s, with the confident posture of someone who had never worried about a mortgage payment. Up close, his pale blue eyes were calculating, assessing our modest tasting room as if tallying its value. "Quite the charming little operation," he said, declining to shake my extended hand. I read the review. "Surprising. Thank you for stopping by," I replied. "Would you like to taste the wine that's causing such excitement?" His smile never reached his eyes. "I doubt it would interest me. Mass appeal isn't my concern. Legacy is. My family has defined winemaking in this valley for generations." "As has mine," I countered. "Your family used to define winemaking," he corrected. "Now you're just a curiosity, an amusing sidebar to the real story of this region." He glanced around once more. "My offer still stands, though I should warn you that property taxes are being reassessed this year. Might make things even tighter for the operations of your scale." After he left, Dad found me staring at the ancient vines. "He's worried," Dad said, a hint of pride in his voice. "August wouldn't have come himself if he wasn't." We submitted our heritage reserve to the Regional Wine Excellence Competition the following month. It was a prestigious event that could put us firmly back on the map and secure the attention of commercial buyers looking for exclusive products. The morning of the results, I received a call that our entry bottles had arrived broken. When I rushed to the competition office with replacement bottles, I was told we'd missed the deadline. Yet somehow, we still won bronze, the first medal for Wilmont in 15 years. The victory should have been sweet. But as I studied the judging notes, something felt wrong. Comments like "remarkable depth undermined by inconsistent finish" contradicted what every critic had previously said. When the head judge, a woman who'd praised our wine at a blind tasting weeks earlier, avoided eye contact at the awards ceremony, I knew something wasn't right. The pattern continued. Health inspectors appeared during harvest based on anonymous tips. Our tasting room permit renewal faced unexpected delays. Delivery trucks mysteriously canceled. Local restaurants that had enthusiastically supported us suddenly removed our wines from their lists, offering vague explanations about supplier consolidation. Still, we persevered. The quality of our wines spoke for itself, and a core group of loyal customers spread the word. Our direct sales grew enough to keep the lights on and the bank at bay, if only barely. Then came the opportunity that could change everything. Royal Crown Hotels, an international luxury chain, was seeking an exclusive vineyard partner for their North American properties. Their purchasing director, Leonard Davenport, had tasted our heritage reserve at a food festival and requested a formal presentation. A $5 million contract would transform our future overnight. We could repair the irrigation system, hire proper staff, expand production of our heritage vines. 3 days before the presentation, I was clearing out our old storage barn when I discovered a metal box hidden beneath warped floorboards. Inside lay documents my grandfather had preserved, property surveys, hand-drawn maps, and letters dating back to 1947. As I spread them across the dusty floor, a different history of our valley emerged, one that made my hands tremble with both rage and vindication. The morning of the presentation arrived with perfect wine country weather, bright sunshine mellowed by a gentle breeze. I dressed carefully in clothes that would communicate professionalism without pretension. Dark jeans, a simple cream blouse, leather boots that had seen actual vineyard work. The venue was Cresthaven's grand tasting hall, neutral territory supposedly, though August had clearly pulled strings to host the event. As I set up my modest display beside elaborate presentations from 5 other vineyards, including Cresthaven's ornate booth, August approached. "Nervous?" he asked quietly. "You should be. This audience expects excellence, not experimentation. They expect authenticity," I replied. "Something not everyone can provide." His eyes narrowed. "Be careful making claims you can't substantiate, Miss Wilmont." When my turn came to present, I guided the audience through the tasting with passionate precision, explaining how the limestone in our soil created the distinctive mineral notes that finished each sip. I watched Mr. Davenport's expression as he tasted, the slight widening of his eyes, the appreciative nod. Then the security guards walked in. The guards gripped my arms firmly, already turning me toward the exit. The gleaming tasting hall had fallen into uncomfortable silence. 64 industry professionals, witnessing my public humiliation. "The committee has received evidence of rule violations regarding your grape sourcing," the first guard announced, voice echoing through the hall. "The accusation states that Wilmont Vines is purchasing outside fruit while claiming estate production." A murmur rippled through the audience. In the wine world, few accusations cut deeper than authenticity fraud. the purchasing director from Royal Crown Hotels, our last hope for financial salvation, looked down at the document I'd handed him, his brow furrowed in concentration. August rose from his seat, the picture of reasonable concern. Perhaps we should continue with the remaining presentations while this unfortunate situation is sorted out. From the corner of my eye, I saw Mr. Davenport slowly set down his wine glass. His eyes met mine, then shifted to August, something new dawning in his expression. Actually, Davenport said, his authoritative voice cutting through the tension, I'd like a moment to understand what I'm looking at here. He held up the yellowed paper I'd given him. Miss Wilmot, would you care to explain this document before you leave? August stepped forward. Leonard, surely the competition rules. I'm not addressing competition rules, August. I'm curious about this survey map from 1947. I straightened my shoulders. That map shows the original boundaries of all vineyards in this valley before certain adjustments were made, particularly the northeastern slope, where Cresthaven's premium grapes now grow. The taller security guard looked uncertainly between August and Davenport. Sir, we were instructed to— I understand, I interrupted, and I'll go with you willingly. But first, Mr. Davenport deserves to know that the exclusive terroir Cresthaven claims as their multi-generational heritage was actually Wilmot land until 1952. The county property records confirm a boundary shift that occurred when my great-grandfather faced financial ruin during that year's drought. August's face reddened. Ancient history has no bearing on current competition violations. It has bearing on authenticity, I replied calmly. Your marketing materials claim your signature wines come from vines nurtured by Bellamy hands for generations. Yet the original grape stock and the unique soil composition you showcase originated on Wilmot land. The room had grown so silent I could hear the air conditioning hum. Davenport studied the map carefully, tracing the boundary lines with his index finger. Is this accurate? He asked, looking directly at August. It's a desperate ploy from a failing business, August said, but I caught the slight tremor in his voice. Leonard, you can't possibly take this seriously. Davenport folded the map carefully. Actually, August, property lineage matters tremendously in my industry. Authenticity and provenance are what our clients pay premium prices for. He turned to me. Miss Wilmot, I'd like to continue our conversation after this. Misunderstanding is cleared up. The security guards, clearly uncomfortable, loosened their grip on my arms. August slammed his hand on the judge's table. This is absurd. She's facing legitimate competition violations. Based on whose accusation? Davenport asked mildly. Anonymous tips from industry insiders, August said stiffly. How convenient, I replied. Just like the anonymous health inspection tips during harvest and the anonymous complaints about our permit renewals. One of the competition judges, a woman named Julia, who had been awkwardly studying her notepad, finally looked up. Perhaps we should adjourn until the committee can properly investigate all claims, both the sourcing accusation and this historical information. I knew this was my only opening. I welcome any investigation into our growing practices. Our entire production comes from family land, using sustainable methods documented in my grandfather's journals. What I question is the timing of these accusations. Always, when Wilmot begins to gain recognition that might challenge certain established narratives. The next 3 hours unfolded in a blur of tense conversations. The competition committee convened an emergency session while Davenport requested private meetings with both August and me. Security remained, but their role shifted from removing me to maintaining order as whispers spread throughout the hall. By late afternoon, I sat alone on a stone bench in the courtyard, watching golden light filter through the ancient oak trees. The heavy wooden door behind me opened, and Leonard Davenport emerged, his expression unreadable as he took a seat beside me. Your father's recovering well? He asked unexpectedly. Yes, his heart's stronger now. Good. He nodded thoughtfully. I grew up on a small apple orchard in Michigan. My father lost it to developers when I was 12. Some wounds never fully heal. I remained silent, letting him continue. The committee has temporarily suspended judgment pending investigation, he said, but I've completed mine. He handed me a business card with a handwritten note on the back. This is my private number. Call me tomorrow to discuss Royal Crown's exclusive vineyard partnership. My breath caught. I mean I've made my decision regardless of committee findings. I know authentic quality when I taste it. And I know authentic people when I meet them. Hope flickered to life inside me, the first real hope in 3 years of struggle. But as Davenport walked away, August appeared at the courtyard entrance, his tall figure backlit by the setting sun. Congratulations, he said, voice dripping with quiet menace. You've made an impression today. I only revealed the truth. Truth? He laughed softly. You've revealed nothing but your willingness to destroy generations of regional wine prestige for your personal gain. That's rich coming from someone who built their prestige on stolen land and appropriated heritage. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. Let me be clear. If you pursue this narrative, I will ensure that no one in this industry ever trusts the Wilmot name again. Your father's heart can withstand that battle. Your finances can endure years of litigation. Your tiny operation can survive when suppliers mysteriously stop delivering. When distributors find quality issues with every shipment, the threat hung between us, heavy as storm clouds. For a moment, I considered retreat. The Royal Crown contract alone would save us. Perhaps I could walk away from the larger fight about heritage and boundaries. But 5 generations of Wilmot determination ran through my veins. My grandfather told me something once, I said, rising to face him directly. He said the true test of a winemaker isn't just creating something beautiful from the land. It's defending that land against anyone who would take it. August's smile never wavered. Inspiring. But I've spent 40 years building alliances in this industry while you were playing in science labs. You have no idea what's coming for you. As he walked away, the weight of his threat settled on my shoulders. The contract with Royal Crown would help, but August controlled regional suppliers, influenced local regulations, and held sway with distributors. He could still destroy us a dozen different ways. I needed more than one map and one contract to truly win. I needed something that would shatter his power completely. That night, I returned to the metal box my grandfather had hidden. Past midnight, surrounded by decades-old papers spread across our kitchen table, I found it, a handwritten letter from 1952 that made my hands shake so badly I nearly dropped it. The next morning, I drove to the county records office the moment it opened. The clerk looked dubious when I explained what I needed. Those records would be in deep storage, if they exist at all, she said. They exist, I insisted, sliding the letter across the counter. And I need to see them today. 5 hours later, armed with official copies and trembling with a mixture of rage and vindication, I tried calling Leonard Davenport. No answer. I tried again. Straight to voicemail. By evening, news had spread throughout the valley. Royal Crown Hotels had announced an exclusive partnership with Cresthaven Vineyards. August's voice filled local radio stations, expressing humble appreciation for this recognition of multi-generational excellence. My call to Davenport's private number went unanswered. When I finally reached his assistant the next day, she informed me that Mr. Davenport had taken sudden leave for family reasons and would be unreachable for several weeks. Dad found me in the vineyard at sunset, kneeling between the ancient vines. We knew August had power, he said gently. We knew he'd fight dirty. But I had proof. I had the truth. I had Davenport's word. My voice cracked. Dad lowered himself beside me with a grunt. Truth doesn't always win, Sage. Not immediately, anyway. Then what was the point of fighting? I demanded. What was the point of coming back here at all? He ran his weathered hand along one of the gnarled vines. Your great-grandfather planted this during the Depression. It survived drought in the 50s, floods in the 70s, that brutal freeze in 86. Vines with shallow roots die when conditions turn harsh. The ones that endure go deep. I closed my eyes, feeling the cool earth beneath my palms. We don't have time to go deeper, Dad. The bank needs payment in 30 days. Then we find another way, he said simply. That night I couldn't sleep. At 3 a.m, I returned to the storage barn with a flashlight, convinced I'd missed something in my grandfather's hidden box. The floor creaked beneath my weight. As I knelt where I'd found it, the beam of my light caught something, a faint discoloration in the wooden planks that formed a small square. I pried up the boards, expecting to find empty space. Instead, I found another box, older and smaller than the first, wrapped in oilskin that had protected it from decades of damp. Inside lay a journal bound in cracked leather and a sealed envelope addressed simply, "When the land is threatened." The journal belonged to my great-grandfather. The handwriting was difficult to decipher, but as I read through the night, a story unfolded that was far more shocking than boundary disputes. At dawn, I called the one person who might help, Julia, the competition judge, who had seemed so uncomfortable during my confrontation with August. When she answered, I said only, "I know why you've been afraid to stand up to him, and I can prove he doesn't deserve your fear." She was silent for so long, I thought she'd hung up. Finally, she whispered, How soon can you get to the coffee shop on Orchard Street? Julia sat in the farthest corner of the coffee shop, her fingers nervously tapping against a ceramic mug. When she saw me, her eyes darted to the door, then back to me. 15 minutes, she said as I slid into the seat across from her. That's all I can risk. I placed my great-grandfather's journal on the table between us, but kept my hand on it. How long have you been judging for the regional wine excellence competition? 12 years, she answered, her voice barely audible above the cafe chatter. And how long has August been controlling the results? She flinched, then straightened her shoulders. I never said you didn't have to. It's written all over your face every time his name comes up. I leaned closer. What does he have on you, Julia? Her eyes welled with tears. My vineyard is small, like yours. 2 years ago, I discovered that August had applied for water rights that would essentially cut off my access to the creek that feeds my irrigation system. When I confronted him, he offered a deal, favorable judging for Cresthaven wines in exchange for withdrawing his application. And you agreed. I had no choice. She wiped away a tear. Without that water, everything my parents built would die. I nodded slowly, then opened the journal to a page I'd marked. August's family didn't just steal our land, Julia. They stole an entire legacy and buried the truth about where their prized grapes actually came from. I turned the journal toward her. My great-grandfather's handwriting described how Bernard Bellamy, August's father, had discovered that the northeastern slope of Wilmot land produced grapes with extraordinary properties due to unique soil composition. During the financial crisis of 1952, Bernard pressured the bank to call in my great-grandfather's loans early, then swooped in to save him by purchasing that specific parcel at a fraction of its value. This is serious, Julia whispered, but hardly surprising, given August's reputation. Keep reading. Her eyes widened as she turned the page. Is this? Yes, Bernard never created the Cresthaven signature blend as their marketing claims. He stole it, complete with my great-grandfather's notes on fermentation techniques and aging processes. Every bottle of their premium reserve that August claims comes from 3 generations of Bellamy innovation is actually a stolen Wilmot family recipe. Julia looked up, horrified. This would destroy his credibility in the industry. But it's just one man's journal. Not enough proof for today's world. I reached into my bag and pulled out the sealed envelope, which is why my great-grandfather left this. The envelope contained 2 items. A faded photograph showing Bernard Bellamy standing beside my great-grandfather in our original wine cellar, examining bottles with clear Wilmot labels, and a signed agreement, a primitive non-disclosure contract where my great-grandfather promised never to reveal the special techniques Bernard was borrowing in exchange for loan forgiveness. Julia's hands trembled as she examined the documents. August would claim these are forgeries, which is why I need your help, I said, and the help of anyone else August has bullied or blackmailed over the years. Over the next 3 weeks, I worked with a quiet intensity that alarmed even my father. Each morning began in our vineyard at dawn, tending the precious vines that carried our heritage. Each night ended with phone calls and secret meetings with people throughout the valley who had suffered under August's reign. Small vineyard owners whose water rights had been threatened, former employees who'd been forced to sign draconian non-disclosure agreements, retailers who'd been pressured to keep Wilmot wines off their shelves. Julia introduced me to 2 other competition judges who confessed to similar pressure tactics. A retired banker confirmed that unusual transactions surrounding vineyard properties had been common practice under Bernard Bellamy's influence. A former Cresthaven winemaker admitted that the secret family techniques were guarded so zealously that even senior staff weren't allowed to witness certain processes. Piece by piece, I assembled a comprehensive picture of how the Bellamy family had systematically built their wine empire through intimidation, appropriation, and fraud. But assembling information wasn't enough. I needed a platform where the truth couldn't be buried or dismissed. The annual Valley Heritage Gala provided the perfect opportunity. Hosted at the Regional Historical Society, the event brought together every significant figure in the wine industry, along with state officials, national critics, and major buyers. August was not only attending, he was being honored with the Lifetime Achievement Award for upholding the legacy of regional winemaking. Tickets were expensive and exclusive, but Julia helped secure one for me. The Historical Society director, whose funding requests had been repeatedly denied by August despite Cresthaven's substantial profits, was surprisingly eager to help when I explained what I was planning. The night of the gala arrived with a spectacular sunset painting the valley in gold and crimson. I dressed with deliberate care, not in expensive finery, but in a simple dress the color of Wilmont soil. Around my neck hung my grandmother's pendant containing a tiny pressed grape leaf from our first harvest in 1893. As I walked into the elegant Historical Society ballroom, conversations faltered. August, holding court near the central display of historical valley treasures, saw me and froze mid-sentence. Leonard Davenport, standing nearby, had the decency to look ashamed. I moved through the crowd, stopping to speak quietly with each person who had shared their experiences with me. One by one, they nodded, solidarity, replacing fear, in their eyes. The Historical Society director tapped her glass for attention as the evening program began. Before we proceed with our scheduled presentations, Miss Sage Wilmot has requested a moment to unveil a special historical discovery relevant to our celebration of Valley winemaking heritage. August stepped forward. This is highly irregular. We have a program to follow. The director smiled politely. As our foremost advocate for preserving winemaking history, surely you'd support the inclusion of newly discovered historical documents, Mr. Bellamy? Trapped by his own public persona, August retreated, eyes burning with silent warning. I took the small stage, looking out at the sea of curious faces. Thank you for allowing me this moment. As many of you know, the Wilmot family has been growing grapes in this valley for 5 generations. Recently, while restoring our historic barn, I discovered documentation that significantly revises our understanding of how certain signature winemaking techniques developed in this region. I activated the presentation the Historical Society director had helped prepare. On the large screen behind me appeared the photograph of Bernard Bellamy in the Wilmot cellar. This photo from 1952 shows Bernard Bellamy examining Wilmot wines in our family cellar wines, produced using techniques that mysteriously became the foundation for Cresthaven's premium reserve line. The following year, a murmur spread through the audience. August stepped toward the stage, but Leonard Davenport subtly blocked his path. I continued, displaying the signed non-disclosure agreement. This document shows that my great-grandfather was pressured to surrender both land and intellectual property under financial duress. The next slides showed county records confirming the suspicious property transfer, followed by testimony from the retired banker about Bernard Bellamy's tactics. But perhaps most compelling, I said, my voice steady despite my pounding heart, is this comparative analysis conducted by an independent enologist. The screen showed chemical analysis results from 3 wines: original Wilmot wine from preserved bottles dated 1951, Cresthaven's first signature reserve from 1953, and my recently revived Heritage Reserve. The molecular structures and distinctive compounds are nearly identical in all 3 samples, confirming they originated from the same techniques and grape stock, Wilmot techniques, and grape stock that were appropriated, not innovated. The room had grown so quiet I could hear the antique clock ticking on the wall. I looked directly at August, whose face had gone pale beneath his perfect tan. I'm not here seeking compensation or land restoration, though legal experts confirm I'd have grounds for both. I'm here for something more important: truth. I gestured to the display of historical valley treasures beside the stage. History matters in winemaking. Authenticity matters. The story we tell about where our wines come from and how they're made matters. Julia stood up from her seat. As a competition judge, I move that we conduct an independent review of all regional wine excellence awards for the past decade in light of this information. 2 other judges rose to second her motion. August finally broke his silence. This is absurd. You can't possibly believe this elaborate fabrication from a failing vineyard desperate for attention. Leonard Davenport stepped forward. Actually, August, I've seen enough to question your version of events. Royal Crown Hotels values authenticity above all. Perhaps our exclusive partnership was premature. The Historical Society director raised her glass. In the spirit of transparency, I invite everyone to participate in a special tasting. We've prepared unmarked glasses of 3 wines: current Cresthaven Reserve, current Wilmot Heritage Reserve, and, most interesting of all, a preserved bottle of original Wilmot wine from 1948 found in our archives. As servers distributed trays of wine glasses, I watched August's composure crumble. He knew what the tasting would reveal, that my revived heritage techniques produced wine unmistakably linked to those original bottles, while Cresthaven's modern production had prioritized profit over authenticity, gradually drifting from the stolen techniques that built their reputation. The crowd sipped thoughtfully, notebooks and phones appearing as people recorded their impressions. Wine critics huddled together, comparing notes with growing excitement. I caught fragments of their conversation: remarkable similarity, historical continuity, true heritage viticulture. August grabbed my arm as I stepped down from the stage. "You've made a powerful enemy," he hissed. I smiled, removing his hand firmly from my arm. "Actually, I've neutralized one. The documentation has already been submitted to the Wine Heritage Foundation, the State Agricultural Board, and 3 national publications. The truth is out, August. It can't be buried again." Leonard Davenport approached us, his expression resolute. "Miss Wilmot, I owe you an apology. August informed me you'd withdrawn from consideration for our partnership due to production concerns. I should have verified that information directly." "Apology accepted," I said, watching August's face contort with fury. "I assume our original agreement is void?" "Not at all. In fact, I'd like to renegotiate terms, more favorable ones, recognizing the unique historical value of your authentic production methods." By evening's end, I'd received invitations from 7 major distributors, 4 international buyers, and a documentary filmmaker interested in telling the true story of Valley wine heritage. The Regional Wine Excellence Competition announced an immediate review of judging practices, with Julia appointed to head the reform committee. As the crowd thinned, I found myself standing alone beside the display case containing the ancient bottle of Wilmot wine. My father appeared at my side, eyes glistening with pride. "Your grandfather would have loved this moment," he said softly. "I wish he could have seen it." He did. Dad placed his hand over mine. "Through you." 6 months later, I stood among the thriving vines on our northeastern slope. Land returned to us through a settlement agreement that avoided the public embarrassment of a lawsuit August couldn't win. The Royal Crown Partnership had allowed us to restore our historic winery to its former glory while maintaining our small-batch, heritage-focused approach. August had retired to a villa in Italy, his son taking over Cresthaven with a conspicuous new commitment to transparency in winemaking. The Regional Wine Excellence Competition had been completely restructured, with blind tasting protocols that even the most powerful producers couldn't influence. As I watched the sunset paint our vines in golden light, I remembered something my great-grandfather wrote in his journal. "The land remembers what we do to it, good and bad. In time, the truth rises from the soil itself." If you enjoyed this story of justice served through determination and truth, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Share in the comments your thoughts on standing up against powerful forces that try to rewrite history for their benefit. Remember, sometimes revenge isn't about destruction, it's about restoration of what should have been all along.